In my opinion, the microtransactions held within Overwatch are not consumer-friendly, and I'm going to explain why I believe that. As this one has had some good conversation online, I'd like to keep that going in the comments below, so let's chat about it. But first, my opinion, I'm Tarmack, and this is Feature Creep. I follow a few gaming pundits, including Jim Sterling and Totalbiscuit, who both recently discussed opposing but extremely respectful viewpoints on the issue of microtransactions in Overwatch. For starters, let's go over exactly how the microtransactions in Overwatch work. If you've already seen the videos by Jim and or TB, this may be stuff you already know, but bear with me, I'll be quick. Overwatch is a retail or digital purchased game with a low-end entry price of $40 US. It has several other additions as Blizzard games normally do, including versions with special skins, cross-game benefits for Diablo 3, StarCraft 2, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, and WoW. As you play Overwatch, you gain levels. These levels have no upper limit, with XP gains leveling out at about level 20, with XP being gained from playing matches, with little bonuses for things like playing with friends, consecutive matches, first win of the day, medals for being the best in your team under certain metrics, etc. Each level gains you a loot box, which contains 4 items that are entirely cosmetic and do not affect the mechanics of the game in any way. These items are random and comprised of things like skins, voice lines, poses for the victory screen after a match, animations shown when you get the play of the game, and sprays, which are quite simply a static image that you can place on a wall anywhere and anytime during a game. There are 54 unlockable items for each of the 21 characters, 25 of which are sprays, with a chunk of them being available unlocks by completing achievements, and the rest unlocks through the item boxes. At 4 items per box, where some of the unlocks can be things you already have, let's just say you don't want to be a completionist in Overwatch unless you've got some money to burn or a ridiculous amount of time to dedicate to the game. Now, I need to make my view on Overwatch itself very clear. I love this game. It has just the right variety of style and mechanics to keep every match feeling interesting, and it's an action-packed title. It's a bit light on content for a multiplayer shooter, but it's also not a full $60 release. And finally, it cheats on behalf of the player by way of a very, very generous character hitbox system, so as to make every player able to pull off badass plays, even terrible FPS players like myself. This could hurt the long-term esports appeal, but frankly, I don't see why every Blizzard game needs to be an esports success. I'm having a blast with Overwatch, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. The primary reason that I wanted to tackle this topic came after watching what Totalbiscuit had to say on the matter. His viewpoint is focused on the mechanics as he normally does, and the Overwatch microtransactions are cosmetic only and do not affect gameplay. He argues that this is a pro-consumer game feature. This is for a number of reasons, but primarily it introduces player choice into the mix. Either a player can play a lot and unlock the cosmetic content, or they can choose to skip that grind by paying more money than time, as TB puts it. I think that's worded incorrectly though. To me, a better way to phrase it would be people who value their time more than their money. A seemingly minor but important distinction in my view. Now, I will absolutely concede one item here. Microtransactions that do affect gameplay are far worse from a consumer-friendly perspective than ones that do not affect gameplay, all other things being equal at least. What I dispute, however, is that just because these microtransactions do not affect gameplay, that they are pro-consumer. I'm going to argue 3 main points as to why this is not a pro-consumer feature. The first is the idea of game systems being designed to encourage purchase. The second is the value proposition, and the third, psychological manipulation. As some have discussed, the progression system in Overwatch was both demanded by players and implemented by Blizzard as a monetization platform within the game. XP exists for no other reason than to unlock cosmetic items. One item that Totalbiscuit and I disagree on here is the progression grind. In his video on the topic, he states that there is no direct evidence that the system is elongated in such a way as to frustrate the player into buying. I disagree, but only so much as to say that here we are dealing with straight economics. There's a sweet spot in demand where the ideal price of a product sits, outside of coincidental cartel behavior like the usual $59.99 US video game price tags. Much the same way, there will also be a sweet spot between player frustration sufficient to make somebody quit a game because the curve is too steep, and too gradual where nobody buys anything. As the system exists only for the purpose of monetizing progression, it was created with the idea of paying customers right from the beginning, even though it wasn't present in the original beta test. In a game where no such monetization exists, on the other hand, progression is balanced towards the players having the most fun possible and getting extremely satisfying rewards. In short, if Blizzard balanced the loot boxes the same way they would have if nobody could buy anything, then their financial analyst needs to be fired. Remember, where it comes to companies like Electronic Arts and others, Totalbiscuit, myself, and many other people have consistently said that these companies cannot be trusted to be operating in the customer's best interest where a financial motive is at play, and I know that TB mentioned this in his video. We can't give Blizzard a pass just because we like them as a company more on that basis. The Overwatch progression system is here to make money, and we need to acknowledge that this was the plan the whole time. That's why the game's price is $40 US. On my second point of value proposition, I need to leave a huge caveat. Obviously, people have different definitions of value from one person to the next. That said, for $39.99, or the same cost as the base game itself, you can buy 50 loot boxes. On the low end, they're $1 a piece, and if you buy in bulk, you can get them for about 80 cents each. In those loot boxes, you're certainly likely to get a good chunk of skins, of which around 20 will be basic recolors, 4 to 5 epics, which are fancier recolors, and 4 to 5 legendaries, which are the actual uniquely designed skins. There will be about 20 to 30 voice lines, a handful of player intros, and a bunch of victory poses, along with tons of sprays. I have yet to see someone explain why the scant content offerings available when paying the price of a game again is good value. It's a similar value proposition to buying printer ink or Keurig coffee pods, rather noteworthy examples of deceptive value, and it stinks of gems and other such mainstay nonsense in the free-to-play market. Now, you may disagree and feel that those skins, animations, and sprays that you're likely to get if you pay for the game twice are worth it, and that's your prerogative, I suppose. My third and last point is that psychological manipulation is also a mainstay of the free-to-play market, and it has been for some time now. Numerous game developers actually employ psychologists for use in determining their economic policies, while other developers merely follow the path that companies like King have laid before the market already. We have to face the fact that Overwatch is a free-to-play game with a retail price. That doesn't make it a bad game, but it is the truth of the matter. If you remember, the gaming press and game market were surprised when Blizzard came out and said it would not be free-to-play after everything we'd seen about it. It has all of the hallmarks of a free-to-play game, albeit a pretty good one that doesn't let its players buy power, but it's got to charge a retail price because of the level of polish and quality that Blizzard puts behind their games. And as a game with a very free-to-play structured framework, it employs more than a few of the stock standard and, dare I say, very intentional and successful brain-twisting ways of getting you to part with your money. Let's start with the loot boxes. These are random, and the reason that they're random is to inflate the number of levels you need or loot boxes you've got to buy in order to actually acquire the loot that you want. If instead it was a digital currency only that you earned and or purchased, then you could potentially argue that it might be a pro-consumer move because people can just buy the cool stuff that they want. It would also incentivize Blizzard to keep making every new piece of content amazing because if they create a crappy skin, people won't spend the currency or money to buy it. With a randomized crate system, they can introduce fluff content like color-only reskins, which does little more than pad the system out, and I'm sure any artists in the crowd will confirm that it isn't exactly a huge time sink to make those. I'm sure that some people like the sprays, I'm sure that some people really like the voice lines, but I think it's safe to say that these two specifically are less valuable content in the game. My evidence is mostly anecdotal, but how often do you see sprays or get spammed with voice lines outside of the staging area before a match starts? The premium or best content people are after are the skins, animations for play of the game, and victory poses because those are awesome, and really they get seen both by the player and by other people that they're playing with. Those are also a minority of the unlockable content, which is not very surprising given the loot crate randomized mechanic. I think it's worth talking about the gambling aspect as well. Yes, it's true that there is no monetary return, so you can't really call it gambling, but it still hits the same just one more addiction triggers in the brain. It's also worth asking the question, why did Blizzard choose the randomized pseudo-gambling method of Hearthstone instead of the simple digital currency like they use with Heroes of the Storm? Personally, I think it's an obvious intentional choice to make more money. If the intent was to let those who value their time more than the money it costs skip the grind, then why not allow for a straight monetary to reward conversion for everyone where you buy the content that you want? After all, it was, as TB mentions, the consumers who clamored for a progression system. The simple reason is that letting people buy what they want limits their financial exposure to only the items that that person thinks look good, whereas a gambling light system of loot boxes gives financial exposure to the entire catalog of cosmetic items. These elements of how the system has been designed fall into the realm of marketing and psychological manipulation. They are feeding off of what are in essence unconscious brain failures and will make a ton of money doing it. That doesn't make it ethical or consumer friendly in the slightest. Yes, absolutely, the consumer has the choice of whether to purchase the loot boxes or not. And yes, just like advertising, most people believe that the actions I described that Blizzard has taken in creating the system don't affect them. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The moment you say that marketing doesn't work on you is the moment that you're wrong. The same applies to microtransactions and the manipulation being conducted by the developers. I fall squarely in the camp of disagreeing with microtransactions in retail releases. In this particular case, I actually feel that the most egregious part of Overwatch isn't the microtransactions at all. It's the retail price. The retail price is the only part of Overwatch that doesn't look, smell, and play like a free-to-play game. Obviously, a significant number of people will still buy the loot boxes, and that is their choice. But what I want to leave you with is this. The intent of the progression system is to satisfy gamers' need for reward, and the intent of the monetization system is to let others skip that progression grind if they have more money than time. So, what value to the consumer is being added by having random loot boxes where those wanting to skip the grind still can't do so because they don't unlock enough content unless they're very lucky or they spend a lot of money? What value to the end consumer is added by sprays, clearly the least valuable and least interesting content, representing the overwhelming bulk of not just what can be unlocked, but also what you're likely to receive in your loot boxes, just making the grind longer? What value to gamers is keeping the amount of currency you get from duplicate items so low? Why no currency generation at the end of a match? That answer, folks, unfortunately, is that all of those elements and how this system runs are designed this way because it makes the most money. And you're damn right, they're a company, that's their job. But let's not pretend that it's consumer friendly. Remember, I still love this game, it's awesome, but the leveling, loot box, and shop system was not designed with the best interests of gamers in mind. It's that simple. Are you playing Overwatch? Have you bought any loot boxes? Or barring that, have you played any other games that run similarly to this for progression? Let's chat about it down below. And I'm kind of stoked because today is my first of 9 days off from my normal job, so we should be able to get a few things back on track for the channel. Feature Creep is a regular show every week, unless Canada is burning down. So please subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you made it all the way to the end but didn't enjoy the content, I think you might be broken. That's all I have to say. Tarmack out.